Today we are working on a 2002 Ford Thunderbird, and the concern is that there are no backlights for the cluster when turning on the lights. So when we go ahead and switch this, no lights come on. I do see that the trip meter does dim, but I see no lights here. I do see lights coming on the dash. Also nothing on the shifter. And I could be wrong, but I believe these are supposed to be lit as well. Don't take my word for it though. I don't see these every day. So let's go ahead and replace the cluster. Just kidding. Let's go ahead and look at service information, see what kind of system we're dealing with, and get familiar with what we're heading into here. But before we do that, let's go ahead and take a quick look at the codes that are present. Our HVAC module shows inside temperature circuit open. We've got an audio control module that has some codes that are unrelated and a PCM readiness test incomplete. So nothing in our cluster that I could see. Our hybrid electronic cluster does not show any codes. And let's do some digging. All right, so let's see if we can get any information through all data. Let's go ahead and take a look at our diagrams. Let's see if we can find out what's responsible for instrument panel backlighting. Maybe it's a simple system, maybe it's not, who knows? But we're gonna do our homework first. And this may not be very helpful to us. We see like a gist of our cluster, basically, or like the general, how it receives inputs and whatnot. See if there is any description in operation. And we do see cluster, but we also see instrument panel illumination, so that's pretty useful. Let's go to system description, why not? So it shows what the cluster lighting system provides backlighting to. Shows the cluster, the headlamp switch, the dimmer switch, climate control assembly, audio unit, power door lock switches, power window switches, steering wheel switches, so it does light up, and the shift lever indicator bezel. So that's good to know. It looks like we're missing like half of those. If we go to principles of operation, this gives us exactly what we need, which is awesome. You gotta love that with certain vehicles, certain brands. They really do come through with the principles of operation. So it says that the dimmer switch, there's nothing on the cluster, by the way. The dimmer switch is next to the headlamp switch. The instrument panel dimmer switch allows the brightness level of backlights and displays to be adjusted dependent upon the headlamp switch position and the instrument panel dimmer switch position. The instrument panel dimmer switch sends a signal to the instrument cluster, which then sends a backlighting intensity and dimming curve command over the standard corporate protocol linked to the front electronics module, the audio unit, and the dual automatic temperature control, our HVAC module. The FEM then sends a pulse width modulated dimming signal to the instrument cluster, the dimmable LEDs, and the dimmable incandescents. So if I understand this correctly, the dimmer switch sends a signal to the cluster, and the cluster then sends a dimming curve command through a communication protocol to the front electronics module and other modules. And then the front electronics module sends a pulse width modulated command signal back to the cluster, LEDs, and the dimmable incandescents. So that's good for us because we may be able to see some live data. So let's go into the scanner and see what we can find with that. So even without the scanner, we already got some information. We know that the switch is working because, quite frankly, when we turn this on, it dims the cluster and it illuminates some of our backlighting. So we know we have something coming from the switch. Now, as to the dimmable switch, it does seem to have an effect as well. Let's go over here and mess with that as well. we can see an effect. So we know our switch is sending information to the cluster. Now, what we don't know is if the front electronics module is receiving the SCP message from the cluster to illuminate the backlighting of the cluster. So that's where we're going to need live data. If we had a communication issue between the cluster and the front electronics module, we would have a code saying there's an SCP fault or something of that nature, and I think we would have more symptoms personally, but it could be wrong. So let's go ahead and jump into the live data, and I don't see an FEM per se, but I do see a general electronic module, and I am going to wing it and assume that that is our front electronics module, and see if we get lucky with some live data. So read data stream, and we have 39 options. So we see dimmable backlighting. That is coming directly from the cluster. And let's see if there's anything else that we can use to give us any information. But I think that right there is huge. Without that live data, we would be wondering whether it's getting the messages or not. So I'm gonna mess with the main switch right here, turn it off. So we've got 0% there. I'm gonna put it back to parking, and I'm gonna mess with the potentiometer, the dimmable switch right here. Let's see if that changes. And it does. It goes from 18% all the way to 99%. This is good for us, because what does this rule out? This rules out an SCP issue. This rules out any wiring issue between the cluster and the front electronics module, or the general electronics module. But what we don't see is that pulse width modulated signal coming out from the general electronics module. That's what we don't have access to right now. So let's go back to the diagrams and see if there's any interior lighting diagrams or anything that we can use. I would imagine that has to be part of the interior lighting, and see where we can search for the signal. If we're going to go straight to the general electronics module, maybe there's another way to get there, because we do have some things where it should be receiving that pulse width modulated signal and it's not getting it, obviously. We've ruled out not the cluster backlighting yet, but we've ruled out the message to the front electronics module as an issue. Now we have to find out what's going on with that pulse width modulated signal coming out of the front electronics module. I'm using them interchangeably: front electronics module, general electronics module. Let's look at the diagrams and keep digging. All right, so we are back at all data, and let's go back to our diagrams. Let's go back a bit, a couple pages. Let's see if we have any interior lighting stuff that we can look at. That'd be nice. Now that we ruled out all the other stuff, we have an instrument illumination circuit. That's perfect. So we have a one-page diagram here. So we see a front electronics module here. We see a fuse that may be directly responsible for just for the backlighting. And then we see a cluster right here. We see the instrument panel dimming module, which is that potentiometer, right, that we're messing with. And we also see the traction control switch, the main light switch. We see the convertible top switch, the transmission shift selector, and all of these are bulbs. If you guys aren't familiar with these symbols here, that's a bulb signal. So, and we can see our steering switches, our speed control switch and our auxiliary audio control switch, both are supposed to be lit as well. So this is good. And one thing we could rule out already, that from what I could tell here, is this has a G301, and we're missing the light on the shifter, but we're also missing light on the main light switch and the instrument panel dimming module, which has a different ground. So I think, I think we could rule out ground, because what are the chances that on both the left side of the vehicle floor and on the behind the right bottom of the dash, there's two bad grounds. I just find it highly unlikely. I think we're gonna either have a power supply issue to these bulbs, some kind of an open circuit somewhere here, or even a blown fuse. So I'm gonna quickly check the fuse. I'm not gonna stick a camera in there. It's behind the right kick panel. I'm just gonna quickly check the fuse and make sure it's good. And we may be able to access this wire here. There's a bunch of splices. There's several connectors. Any of them could be a problem. I think I can actually disassemble. The easiest thing might be to disassemble is one of these switches, either the main light switch or the selector, the shifter, and tap into the blue and black, or this particular wire, it's blue and white on this one. Tap into one of those wires and give it some kind of a signal. I'm assuming since it's a bulb, it's gonna be a 12-volt signal. It might be pulse width modulated for this dimming, but when it's full blast, it's gonna be full 12 volts. So I'm not worried about that. I'm gonna take a quick look and see how the fuse is doing, and once that's checked and confirmed, then we'll move on to possibly disassembling one of these and gaining access to our positive feed to these bulbs, and hopefully rule out all of these splices, any of these right here, anything. Well, technically we would be ruling out, let's say I go to the shifter, or let's say I go to any of these and they all turn on, we're basically ruling out everything from this splice down, and all we would be left with is to apply power here to pin 11 of the front electronics module, and that should also illuminate everything. But that might be a little more disassembly, and we may need to ask for more time because, you know, we're checking for lights here, so we're not putting too much time. So let's go ahead and keep digging. So our 10 amp fuse is good. We're gonna move on to the next phase, and I think this will be the easiest thing to get to. So let's go ahead and remove some panels here. And that was easy. I'm gonna disconnect the traction control switch. I believe this should just pop up. And our wipers work. All right, and according to our diagram, it was a blue and black wire on our main switch, pin 5. So there is our blue and black wire. So I've got my power probe already ready. Oh, you guys can't even see this, I'm sorry. You can really take a good look at this. And I'm going to have it on the off position right now. And I'm gonna take a look, and we have a good ground. When I hit the dimmer, right, we have it on park. My cluster already dimmed a little. It is still ground. And so that you guys can see everything, we're gonna try to give it power and see what happens. And I'm gonna turn off the speaker, and I'm gonna hit power now. And I think the camera will show that, right? We've got power to the cluster. I'm gonna give it power again. And we've got power to our cluster backlight. All right, so I'm gonna give power to that wire that I was giving power to already, and we can see that our light turns on here. When I remove power, it turns off, and our cluster as well turns on. So this rules out all those splices that we were looking at, and the connectors, and just about everything up to that auxiliary connector that we saw in the diagrams. We will have to get to the front electronics module and be 100% and apply power there and see if everything lights up. That will rule out absolutely everything downstream of the front electronics module. And that would, if that's the case, well, we have an internal issue with the front electronics module. We see that live data absolutely does receive the signal, so there's no reason why it shouldn't come out from the front electronics module, and then we're gonna go from there. There's no other way around it. So all right, so we are at the front electronics module. We've gained access to the connector in question. We had to use some sequencing made famous by Paul Danner, which is basically checking out the wire colors and finding out which one is our wires. We found our wire, and I am probed to it with my power probe, and I'm going to go ahead and give it power, and we can see that everything works as it should. So this rules out everything downstream of the front electronics module. So where something internal to the front electronics module crapped the bed. So we're going to talk to the customer, see what kind of approval we can get. I would like to open it and see if I could find something, and explain to the customer realistically that we may not find something. It could be a logic issue, it could be something in the MCU, or it could be a transistor inside of there that blew out. Either way, we're going to give them both of the options to open it and try to repair it, or order a new one. So the client decided, hey, go ahead and open up that module, give it a shot, see if you could repair it. And we did. Unfortunately, I was a little bit pressed for time, so I couldn't film the whole repair process, but we nailed it down to a transistor issue. I went ahead and replaced that transistor. It took a couple of days to get the part because we don't have it on hand. This is the first time I actually opened up one of those modules. And yeah, so far so good. It's a success. It's doing exactly what it should be doing. Even our dimming is working. It's worth a shot. It's one of those things where you have to take the time and try to learn it. So our main switch works. Our panel knob works as well. Our illumination there. Our steering wheel is working. Our steering buttons. Well, you can't really see that. Let me darken that up for you guys. And our shifter is also working. So that is a fix, fellas. A lot of people are actually replacing clusters for this, and that would be a big mistake because used, these clusters are like $800-900 even for this year. This is what, 2002? This is a 2002, and it goes about $800-900 used. So, and the patch system, I believe, is involved with the cluster, so it will not start. So they have to program the whole thing too, just to find out that that's not going to fix their problem. So never guess, always test. And I hope this one helps you guys out. If the general public happens to be watching, this is what it takes to test and fix these things. If you have any questions whatsoever, please be sure to reach out to me. Leave a comment in the comment section if you'd like. And yeah, I'm gonna buy more of those transistors because I can tell that we're gonna see this more often for sure. Thank you all for taking the time to watch. I really appreciate each and every single one of you who support my channel. Thank you to our sponsor, Top Don, for making this video happen. They brought it to you guys, and they continue supporting this channel and what we do here. Be sure to hit like, comment, subscribe if you haven't already. Hit that notification bell so that you can see when I come out with another video. We come out with all kinds of videos. We see all kinds of cars here. So if you like this stuff, be sure to comment, subscribe, like, and all that good stuff. And thanks again for watching. I really appreciate you. And I'll catch you all next time.